Our top focus this evening. For the last 75 days, ethnic clashes have burnt Manipur and left at least 146 people dead. Let me repeat that figure for you. In the last 75 days, at least 146 people have died. In the last 75 days, many have become refugees in their own state. In the last 75 days, the state administration has been unable to rein in gun-toting goons and bring peace to the state. The one thing that the Biren Singh government, though, has done successfully in the last 75 days is to extend the internet ban in the state week after week. So, in the last 75 days, school kids, online businesses, ordinary citizens have been deprived of a basic right that fuels our world. For a moment, imagine, ladies and gentlemen, being without internet for 75 days. How do you pay your bills? How do you write your exams? How do you make online payments? How do you run your businesses? How do you pay your taxes? Today, once again, the centre argued against restoring internet in Manipur, saying it could lead to trouble. The Supreme Court has now referred the matter back to the Manipur High Court, which has already asked the state to restore partial internet in Manipur twice at least. Essentially, the internet ban in Manipur is looking endless, much like it did in Kashmir post the abrogation of Article 370. More than 500 days of internet was suspended in Jammu and Kashmir back then. Congress MP Shashi Tharoor has vehemently argued against this endless suspension of the internet in Manipur. He argues that if an internet ban actually worked, Manipur wouldn't have burnt for 75 days. In fact, he argues that an internet shutdown does more harm than good. He's joining me on the show this evening. Mr. Tharoor, good evening. Thank you very much for being with us here on Mirror Now. The centre today has argued in the Supreme Court that rumours spread through the internet, and that is something Manipur simply cannot afford right now. So internet needs to be suspended till peace returns to the state. Do you find merit in that argument, sir?
There's no doubt that rumors can indeed ignite violence, but rumors flourish in the absence of authentic sources of information. And the internet is such a vital, indispensable tool to ordinary citizens that Manipur in many ways is finding normal life crippled because of the ban on the internet, the shutdown on the internet. I've had desperate appeals from friends in Manipur urging that this entire policy be relooked. I'm no longer chairing the IT committee. But when we did so, we actually summoned both state officials and central government officials to find out whether there was any documentation to suggest that the ridiculously long internet bans that India has resorted to have actually had any noticeable effect on violence or terrorism. In the case of Manipur, it's manifestly clear, it seems to me, that ever since the internet ban has come on, there's been no decrease in violence. There's been no decrease in troubles. The troubles continue. Whereas if the internet was there, the government and the army themselves would have an authentic source of information to put out their messages. The other problem is that people can't do anything, enroll in exams, you go to the banking system, use credit cards, all sorts of things these days for which the internet is absolutely indispensable. And if you can't do all of that, you are a disempowered citizen of India. Why should that be?
Essentially, Mr. Tharoor, then you are arguing that an internet shutdown does more harm than good.
Well, the problem is the government has never provided any convincing evidence that stopping the internet actually changes either the quantum of violence, its intensity, or its pattern. In any case, and not just Manipur, but in any of the other situations in the country, we are earning ourselves a bad name globally as the one democracy which regularly shuts down the internet. And we do so by a factor of something like 800 times more than the next country on the list. It's in terms of the number of days of shutdown that the internet has experienced in India. It's really a disgrace. And it seems to me it is done, as they would say in the legal courts, it's done without application of mind. It just seems to be a simple thing to do, so you do it. You shut down the internet. You don't give a damn about the inconvenience you're causing to large numbers of members of the public, because terrorists and militants usually find other ways of getting their messages across. And they do. And the violence usually continues unabated. In this particular instance, if the day they shut down the internet or the next 2 days, they had completely miraculously restored peace, they could have had an argument. They've not been able to do that. The internet has been shut down, but violence has been continuing, disturbances have been continuing. So why deprive ordinary citizens? Let's say 900 ordinary citizens or 950 ordinary citizens are suffering in order to catch one or two people who might be creating violence. I find this absolutely a lazy resort, a reflexive resort, rather than a well thought out, rationally grounded policy. Now, something in Manipur, something like 5,000 people have been given special lease lines to access the internet. So that again then becomes a particular benefit that only a small minority has. And that to a very small minority, 5,000 people in the entire state, or 5,500, have been authorized by the commissioner to actually have internet access. What about the public at large? In a democracy, government should exist to serve the general public.
While I agree with you there, Mr. Tharoor, the fact is that in 2020, there was a Supreme Court order which said that internet in any state cannot be shut down indefinitely. In fact, the court had also gone to say that if that happens, it is subject to judicial review. But the fact is that even after that Supreme Court judgment and order, governments across this country, and not just Manipur, have resorted to shutting down internet in what you call a lazy resort. Fact is that even the Rajasthan government that is ruled by the Congress party has resorted to an internet suspension every time there is an exam, a public service exam, to prevent cheating. So is your sentiment only restricted to Manipur, but does it enlarge itself to what is happening across this country, not just in Manipur, but in Assam as well, in Rajasthan as well?
It's for all states. It's on the principle of it. And the IT Standing Committee had taken a very clear stand in principle that this is not justified. And of course, if in the rare occasions, much rarer than the government's current practice, if it is justified, it should certainly be brought to review as the Supreme Court has required. But the Supreme Court's rules have been largely ignored, with automatic extensions and reviews taking place. Automatic extensions taking place without review, And that's something which simply won't do. You really do have to ensure that this becomes a very rare last option resort, rather than something they do right off the bat. The moment there's any disturbance, shut down the internet. That's simply no longer tenable in the 21st century and in a democracy.
But, in the 21st century, Mr. Tharoor, the internet is also used as a tool to gather people, to have people assemble in large numbers at a particular place. The example that is often given is of Kashmir, where WhatsApp was often used, to assemble people at places where there was an anti-terror operation going on. Large number of people used to gather there. Many a times you saw terrorists escaping because of this large number of people that the forces then had to deal with. That is the argument that has often been made by the agencies and by the government as well.
I'm not sure that's true. Again, the government has not provided any evidence to confirm that that is true. In fact, we do know how much disruption was caused to the lives of Kashmiris. There were entire businesses that used to function online that literally had to close down. There were lives lost because people couldn't go online to find out which pharmacies are open, which hospitals had doctors who could receive them. It was a terrible, terrible situation from human terms. The damage done to ordinary citizens far, far outweighs the rather ephemeral benefit that the government claims. Besides, if somebody were to use the internet to send a message, you can very quickly trace where that internet post came from and catch the messenger. It's not difficult. The problem is, if you can't do it on the internet, you can send an SMS on an old-fashioned 2G line and you can still reach people. So it's not as if the internet ban is actually foolproof and actually prevents any serious violence. As far as Manipur is concerned, government has never said that the internet was used to summon demonstrators or whatever. They have other means of getting word out to those who might assemble. 1,000 women that stopped an army convoy. I don't think they were convened by the internet. So let's understand that we have to stop the old line about if the only tool you have in your in your hand is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. The truth is, this is the wrong nail they're hammering. This is affecting the democratic rights of our ordinary citizens. And I really feel that it's time that in a democracy we put ordinary people first and give the security forces the minimal that they absolutely can prove they need to deal with their problems. As it is right now, the internet's essentially been shut for the vast majority of the public for about 3 months. And at the same time, there has been no let-up in violence and disturbances in Manipur. I think that makes the case very, very clear. Even the government's own mygov.in website was banned. I mean, in other words, people couldn't access to it. So we are spending taxpayer money to create services and promote e-governance. And then we are spending further money and getting ourselves a bad name to shut down access to the very services we're promoting. The government itself must find this policy irrational.
Mr. Tharoor, let me segue from Manipur to Bangalore. The opposition is once again meeting in Bangalore. Can I ask you, what changed the Congress party's mind as far as opposing the Delhi ordinance in Parliament is concerned? Is it because the Aam Aadmi Party threw a fit? Is it something else?
It certainly wasn't the Aam Aadmi Party throwing a fit. It was the recognition that the constitution was being subverted in many ways in this ordinance. We have, after all, ruled Delhi for many years. So Sheila Dixit was in power for 15 years, and she used these powers responsibly. If these powers were taken away in the manner that this particular ordinance is suggesting, it would not be worth coming to power again in Delhi. I mean, the fact is that any democratic party that wants to rule Delhi, including the BJP, will want to take this ordinance away. It seems to me a very, very short-term temporary experience meant to curb this particular party, the Aam Aadmi Party, from the point of view of the government. If tomorrow the BJP were not ruling at the center, but were ruling in Delhi, they would be just as stridently opposed to these absurd regulations come up in the ordinance, which essentially hands over the powers of the elected government to a bunch of civil servants. It's something that obviously no democratic party would want to support. The only reason I think that the BJP supports is because they're in power in the center right now, so they appoint the civil servants who will effectively rule Delhi. The day they're no longer in power in the center, I'm sure, 100% sure, that they will change their view on their own ordinance, because the expedient is very clearly about curbing the powers of the Aam Aadmi Party government and transferring much of it to bureaucrats who will be appointed by and controlled by the central government. That's the exercise. So every party that's not ruling in the center will want this ordinance scrapped.
But in that case, why did the Congress party keep the Aam Aadmi Party hanging? Is it because the Delhi unit of the Congress wasn't very keen on supporting anything that the Aam Aadmi Party does?
I think there is a great deal of disquiet amongst people in the Congress, particularly in Delhi and in Punjab, against obliging the Aam Aadmi Party, which had kind of made the demands in a rather strident fashion and even attempted to make it a condition for their participation. And that sort of language, I think, got some people's backs up already before Patna. And at the same time, since on the principle of the issue, the Congress Party had clearly concluded that this is not a good ordinance to support, I think it was a question of both when to announce their stand, when to overlook some of the other political considerations around it, and they decided to do so before the Bangalore meeting. I think that's understandable, and I don't think that on the substance of the issue the Congress Party changed its mind. I think its mind was always where it's come out right now. But in terms of timing and so on, and coming across as if it was responding to ultimata from the Aam Aadmi Party, there was naturally some reluctance to that.
But, you know, the BJP after the Patna meeting, before the Bangalore meet, is saying this is a classic case of frenemies coming together. They are friends in Patna and Bangalore, but they are enemies everywhere else in their respective states. How can these guys even think of forming a united opposition where there are so many, ambitions at play? And who is the opposition in any case pitting against Narendra Modi? What would your comment be to that statement?
What's so surprising about that? Go back, for example, to the elections of 2004. Both in Kerala and in Bengal, the communists clobbered the Congress. In Kerala, they clobbered us massively. They won every seat in the state practically, other than 2-1 by the Muslim League. The Congress became 0 in Kerala. But when the Congress formed the UPA government in the center, UPA won, the communist parties with their 60 MPs supported the Congress government from the outside. So there's plenty of precedents for this. There are historical, ideological, and social reasons as to why in different states parties take different stands. And I think we have to accept that because that's the nature of our politics. The NCP, for example, is an ally of the Congresses in Delhi and in Maharashtra, and is with the left front in Kerala. Now, all of this may seem bewilderingly complex, but it reflects much more the histories of politics in specific states.
Mr. Tharoor, this is a bit of a cliche, a TV cliche that is. But in any case, I'm going to ask you this. The question is, Modi versus who? Ultimately, the opposition will have to answer that question.
Look, it seems to me that the Congress party answered this very effectively in one of its election slogans of 2014, which essentially said, "Main nahi, hum." We've got the BJP approaching this election with meh. It's all about one-man rule and the personality of Mr. Modi versus a group of leaders who are saying this is all about us collectively. It's about hum and not meh. I think that's a tenable proposition. But honestly, what you're asking me is way above my pay grade, as they say in the military. I don't know how these decisions will be made. My guesswork, if you were to ask me to guess as an ordinary member of parliament, is that I don't think the parties will consider it essential to pick one particular face before the elections. I think they will go and approach it collectively. They will certainly have the face of their local leaders in local states. So you shouldn't be surprised to see an individual leader being projected in that state, whether it's in UP or Bihar or Bengal or Tamil Nadu or whatever. But when the results are out and we know who all have won how many seats, they'll come together and make a decision, just as UPA 1 and UPA 2 did in 2004 and 2009. I think these are matters that have been solved in the past and they can be solved again.
Mr. Tharoor, appreciate your time here on Mirror Now. Thank you so much for joining us. It was good to chat. On that note, I'm slipping into a quick break on the show. There's much more news coming up on the other side. Do stay with us.